Hey guys, Stealth here. Welcome back to another Stealth and SoCards video. In case you don't know what the SoCards are, it's a pack of cards, and the SoCards are there to help you get talking to people who you might normally have very deep conversations with. They have all sorts of questions. I already answered a few of them like last week. If your picture on a magazine cover, what would be the most likely caption? In that fashion, you can have very deep conversations with people. And last week I organized an event with a bunch of, well, total strangers to me. It's a group that I'm running. It's called the Rotterdam Introverts. And I organize about once a month a meeting with these cards. People are not allowed to talk about anything like work or small talk. So no discussion about how the weather is, what they do for a living, none of that stuff. And it's incredible what sort of deep conversations and deep stories people are willing to share. How vulnerable people actually are in these, well, conversations with random strangers. And they seem to tell a heck of a lot more than they would with most family members or friends. Because you know that the other people in the room are also there not to judge, just to listen and share their own stories. And share insights with each other. Really, really good meeting. Really enjoyed that. Anyway, today's question is, what is something about the way your parents raised you that you are thankful for? A couple of things for me. One is, I'd say that they gave me quite a lot of opportunities. And in the sense that my dad traveled the world. He is in, I think it's dredging is the English term for it. You know, these ships which make sure that harbor canals are deep enough for the big ships to come into. They come in with these big ships and they slowly peg away at the sand, making sure that the canals are deep enough. That's what he does. And he did that all around the world. And that means that age 1, I lived for, I think, a year, maybe half a year in Algeria. Of course, I don't remember shit about that because I was so damn young, but... there is this one famous story that my parents had this sort of party for all the people who were working with my dad. And they had all these like low tables. And I was one, so I was starting to walk around on 2 legs, I think. And they had all these small, I don't think shot glasses, but definitely alcoholic drinks sitting on the table. And I was curious kid, walking around and thinking, let me just dip my finger in this particular glass and, oh yeah, that's pretty good. So age 1, I was drunk, or at least that's the way that my parents tell me the story. Anyway, that's not really something I'm particularly grateful for, although I did think it makes for an interesting story to share. Age 4, we lived in New Zealand for half a year. That was, I think, one of the earliest, well, probably the earliest encounter that I had with English. And that is something that I'm still very, very grateful for, because at age 3, 4, 5, that's when you really start to pick up languages. And kids are extremely flexible in picking up languages. So at age 4, I was in English kindergarten. And I was rapidly picking up English. And I think that laid a sort of foundation and a structure, a base for my level of English. And again, there's this story that my parents tell me that at some point I was, I think, looking all over the house to find something. There's even an old VHS tape where my dad has this filmed, I think. He asks me in Dutch if I can find what I'm looking for or what it is I'm looking for. And instead of replying in Dutch, I reply in English. And I go, yes, Dad, thank you, I can manage. Age 4. Anyway, skip forward to 2000, which is when I was 12. That's when in the Netherlands over here you go to high school. You do that for 6 years and age... depending on which level of education you're taking, age 16, 17, or 18, you're done with high school. For me, that was age 18 because I took the, let's say, the most advanced courses. I'm not really sure how you'd explain that. We have these 3 levels. One of them is in a very practical way. It's more about working... How do you explain this? It's a very practical way of working. So these guys turn out to be mechanics, engineers, people who work with their hands a lot. Then there is the next level, which is the one that is, I think, what most people take. And it's what prepares you for college. And then the next track above that is advanced. I think you could call it advanced scientific education, which would be a pretty poor translation, but it does kind of cover what that is. And that is the level that I took. And to make that level slightly more complex, I took it in a bilingual form, which is something that I was kind of interested in, but my dad kind of saw the opportunity for that, and he saw what it could turn into and how it could help me in life, having this very good level of English, because at the start of that trajectory, of that 6 years, it was promised that if you get to level 4, so that's age about 16, by that point your level of English will have exceeded that of your teachers. That's how fast you can hockey stick with that whole thing. So my dad, or rather my parents together, putting me through that, or not so much putting me through it, but encouraging me to take that particular path and helping me boost my bilingual education that way, and getting me to the level of English that I have right now, which I think is better than what most people in the Netherlands speak. I consider myself to be quite fluent. I'm still sometimes looking for words. It doesn't happen that often, but what I also find myself doing is that I try to pronounce 2 different words together. It's like your brain works as a thesaurus, and it says, okay, you got this word, I got options A, B, and C for you. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put them all in one word, and I'm going to then pronounce it. And that's what happens a lot with me, also in the videos, so you might have noticed this at some point. Anyway, that is something that I'm particularly thankful for, that whole bilingual education, and the way that that has helped me with my level of English, and as such unlocked the world, I suppose you could call it. Because most times I don't even think in Dutch. I think in English. I mentally discuss ideas in English. My wife's an English teacher, so her English is also very good, although I think mine is actually better because I use it more in a fluent way. She's an English teacher, which means she still talks a lot to her students in Dutch while she's trying to teach them English. But actual fluency skills, she doesn't really get to apply that often. Anyway, that's my answer for this week's question. What's yours? What is something that you are grateful for the way that your parents raised you? Looking forward to seeing your suggestions or your responses down below in the comments. And if you have a suggestion for another question, then by all means let me know down below as well. I am going to stick to the deck of cards, but if you have additional questions, then by all means we can discuss those as well. That's it. Thank you for watching. Give the question some thought, come back to me with an answer, and otherwise I'll see you either next week for more SoCards or at some other point for another video. See you then.